Hello again. Now we're going to work on this weather, this toggle switch component. And this is a pretty tricky business, to be perfectly honest. There are a lot of tricky bits involved in it. So you can start by reading through this. You can go through the tutorials. I will say that neither of these tutorials would be really directly applicable in the case at hand. There are various um, difficulties involved, but it's still good to get an idea of how this sort of thing works, and then you can um, return here. And this video, we're going to focus on just getting the raw HTML and the HTML and CSS setup, the JSX and CSS. And in particular, I want to make sure that the JSX is set up in a way that will work for us so I don't have to make a bunch of changes later. Um, some of it, I'll try and explain why I'm doing things the way that I'm doing them. In some cases, the explanations might wait until we set up the functionality. So here I am in my src directory, need to create some files, code, components, ToggleSwitch.jsx. Actually need to make a toggle switch directory inside components, then move that toggle switch.jsx file into the directory. You can, of course, as always, do make these files however you want. There's the CSS file. Oh, no, I saved the wrong one. We don't want that one. We just want them inside the toggle switch folder. And we'll open both of these up. Create some basic boilerplate here. Toggle switch, return, and well, I think so. We could maybe start with just a div with toggle switch class. This is our block here, and we're returning it. It'll be our outer part of the component, and we will export default it. Make sure it's all working. I will import it into, where do we want to import it? To where it's going, the header. Import toggle switch, and then we use it. Where does it need to go? It needs to go to the left of the close button, right? Yeah, to the left of the close button. So let's just try and put it right there and see how it looks. Toggle switch. All right, back to browser. All right, so there it is. It's in the wrong position. We want it over here. And so there are several ways that we can do it. So currently we have the stuff pushed to the right by margin left auto on the leftmost right side element. We could just remove that margin left auto, add it here, and it would push it to where we want it to go. So just to show you what that would look like, if we were to remove that, and I will just remove it because we're not going to use it anymore, and then import our toggle switch CSS file. And add margin left auto to that toggle switch, what we get is it's on the correct side of the page. We could go with that, but see, there's a problem. We we don't want to give this margin left auto to a block. I want this toggle switch. I want to be able to just drop it in wherever I would want. I don't want it to shove itself all the way to the right of the page. So we don't want to do that. In BEM, you would use a mix. What we could do is something like this. We could do div dot push left or something. This is not good BEM. But if we did something like this, put margin left auto, it would push this to the left. And that would sort of mimic the idea of a mix in a way. But what I'm just going to do is make two divs. Div header um, side left and div header side right. And the right side will hold the stuff that is on the right, and the left side will hold the stuff that's on the left. And then what we want to do is header is already a flex container, right? Let's take a look. Where are we at now? Oops, Chrome. Now everything's just clustered. But what if all we got to do is justify content. Remember, we can do the space between to make maximal space in between. Then we got to do some work on these internal containers. We need them to be. Oh, wait. Sorry. I'm messing up here. Doing bad BEM. It should be header underscore, two underscores there, side left, two underscores, side right. They're elements. They're not modifiers of the header block. That wouldn't make sense. Sorry about that. So we've got the justify content space between. We need to make each of the side divs display in a row also. So we need to make them uh, uh, flex containers as well. And I don't even know if we need two classes. We could just do header side. I think that'll suffice for what we need it for right now. So let's see. Header side display flex, justify content space between. Yeah. And looks like we need to do some aligning too, right? We could do align items. It's not going to work here. We would need to align it here. There. All right, so that's looking pretty good. You might have to make additional tweaks since your CSS is probably different than mine in various ways. And of course, we're missing the gap there. How do we create that? What do we want to create that as? If we go here, what we see is that the designer did not give us equal 20, 20. Yeah, the distances are not all equal. So here we've got 12, here we've got 20, here we've got 20. So we'll just use a margin. We won't use gap. I won't put it on the toggle switch for the same reason I didn't put margin left auto on the toggle switch. So that means that here we will also be styling, we need a margin left of 20 as well as margin right, which we can do like this. Top, bottom, 0, left, right, 20. Beautiful. Okay, now we can start with our actual toggle switch styles. For a toggle switch in React and HTML, CSS in general, you would use an input, a checkbox input. And anytime you use a checkbox, you want to use a label. And so we'll do toggle dash switch is the block name. And Label is the element name. I'm not getting fancy. So there's the label. I'm gonna wrap the input in the label, although that's not strictly necessary as long as you establish the right connection between them. The input, I'll call toggle switch checkbox. Needs to be a checkbox, of course. Now, the checkbox itself, we're going to actually make invisible. And you actually know how to do that already. But so we're going to make it invisible, where I guess I lost my other web browser. We're going to make it invisible. All the other stuff is going to have to be separate elements. Maybe we could do something different, but that would be tricky. So what do we need? Well, this here is going to be that div. It's the outermost thing. We need a circle. You've done that before, right? It was a while ago, but basically border radius 50% is the key, as along with square dimensions. And we need some text. Two different text elements, in fact. I'm going to put them all right in here. And I'll just show you how, and then show you what I'm doing, and try to explain a little bit of why I'm doing it this way. So toggle switch circle, I'm just making it a span. You could make it a div. Either would be perfectly fine. It's just going to be that circle. I am putting it immediately after the input. All of these come after the input because we're going to use that relation that they are sibling elements, subsequent sibling elements. We'll use that in our styling. We'll have to style these differently depending on whether this element is checked or not. That'll be in the next video. We're going to start simple. We need we can call these values. You know, we've got two values, F and C. We're going to need to distinguish between them because depending on the check status, when it's checked, this is going to be white. When it's not checked, it's going to be gray and vice versa. So we need a modifier. I'm not going to call it F and C. I'm going to call it left and right. It makes this a little more reusable because you could have lots of different types of toggle switches. That's all the markup we need, I think. We can set the HTML4. I will say toggle switch and give the ID of toggle switch to the checkbox to establish that link. And that will, among other things, it will ensure that the whatever the area that is the label. So if I'm looking at this, I don't think we even need this div. I think the div is superfluous. I'm just going to remove it and make the label toggle switch class. This link here, ID and HTML4, makes it so that whatever dimensions the label has, you click anywhere on it, it's going to check the box. And that's going to be especially important for us here. Technically, it's not necessary if your input is wrapped inside your label, but I think it's a better practice to always include it for future proofing, for one thing, documentation. Okay, take a look at what we have. Oh, one more thing. F, C. Back to Chrome. All right, so we've got the checkbox, we've got an F, and we've got a C. Great. So what do we need to do now? Well, a bunch of things. Look at the Figma. We've got some dimensions, right? 56 by 28 and If you click some more, you can see a 20 pixel border radius. You can see a color, which is for the border and for the gray text, and the size of the border. So let's see if I can remember all that and just make it happen. The width, 56 pixels. The height, 28 pixels. The border, 2 pixels solid, the color that I have on my clipboard. Border radius, 20 pixels. Back to Chrome. All right. Yeah, good start. Let's get rid of this checkbox. We want it to disappear. How can we make it disappear? Well, this is something you've done before. Visibility hidden is what we need to make. That's one way that we can make a thing disappear. There's also like an appearance none, which you will often see in the case of a checkbox, but in this case, I think that could give us difficulties. So visibility hidden is what we will do there. Let's see. I'll select this thing. It is still taking up space, and we don't want that. We don't want it to take up space. Now we could use display none, um, and that would work, I believe. But we could also use position relative, position absolute. What that does is it pulls the thing out of the document flow. And so therefore it takes up no space. It still exists, but it takes up no space. Um, and it will check itself whenever we click anywhere in here. And to show you that, what we can do is remove that here. And if I click here, it still checks and unchecks. That's very important for us. So what else do we need? We need this text to be arranged better. It is a little hard to tell. I was never able to really correctly get the size. Um, but it's going to be 28 divided by 2 is 14 minus half of the size of this letter. So we'll just guess. We'll guess at this dimension and make it padding. So I'll try to start with padding 10 pixels. Padding. It's going to be less on the top and bottom. Top and bottom we won't need. Can we? No. Okay. Top and bottom we won't need. So left and right, we'll try 10 pixels. That made it bigger. Do you remember how to resolve that? Box sizing border box. That means the padding will be included in the size. So we'll still have 56 pixels. That looks fairly close, but I think that we could push it to the left a little bit more. So maybe 11, maybe even 12. We might adjust it further once we, later on. So there, that's good. Oh, adjusting it, that's not gonna, let's stick with 10 for now. Let's stick with 10 for now. Box sizing border box. We don't need it on the top and bottom. We can just center it top and bottom. So, well, let's make it a flex container. Align item center. Justify content space between. It's a really very common, typical way of doing this. And so can you see that F is further to the left than it ought to be? The reason is there's that extra gap, the purple gap to the left of the F. Why is that there? Space between should push this all the way to the left of the container, right? But there's another element that we have here. We have our, wait, did I? Hmm. Oh yeah, it's the circle. We still have another element. This element we can't see it, but it still exists as a flex child um, because it's in the flow of the document. So the next thing we would want to do is pull that out from the flow, of the document. We can do that with position relative, position absolute. While I'm at it, I will add the flex styles that we need. Box sizing. I forgot about box sizing. Box sizing border box. All right, not too bad. We'll just go with that for now. The fonts. Well, your fonts probably look different because you've already set up the fonts. I'm not going to worry about that. Let's see. We do want, so we need some different font colors. And we're going to need different font colors in different situations. So let's set, we need to choose one of the colors as a default value. Color, I'll go with that EF value. And I want to check the Figma for the size, which is 14 with line height like that and 700. All right. Font size 14, line height 1, font weight 700. And I'll do the font family actually so that it looks correct because this is a pretty challenging thing. Do I not have the font set up? Cabinet grotesque, ToggleSwitch value. Oh, maybe that is cabinet grotesque. I was expecting. Nope, no, it's not. ToggleSwitch. Aha! You see the problem? I neglected to include the base class here. Always got to have the base class, not just the modifier. Now, it's a little hard to see, but now they are cabinet grotesque. Uh, they're very hard to read because the gray is not intended for use when, oh wait, no, I must have the wrong color. Ah, yeah, that's the wrong color. Hmm. Oh, EF, blah, blah, blah. That's wrong. That is a very light color. I should have known that. 70, 70, 70. That's the one we want. Yeah, there we go. Okay. Nice. It's close. It still needs some tweaks, but now circle. All right, circle. Let's make it visible. If you remember, we need width 28 pixels, 28, and height of the same value. And as we've done before, we can use border radius 50%, and if the container is square, that will make it a circle. The background color that we need is just black, just plain black, 000. All right. Um, so a couple things that we should note. A, it's in the wrong position. B, the text is not visible because either the circle is over top of it, or it might be just that it's not visible. And I think it might be the latter. So what I'm going to try is to temporarily make these visible with a different color. Oops. No, they're still invisible. So probably a z-index issue, right? If we do, let's do this in the browser. Z-index -1. Yeah, there. Now the text is visible below it. So z-index -1. In case you're wondering why I did not have to put position relative on this element to keep the absolutely positioned circle inside it, it's because it's a flex container. It's one of the many powers of flex containers. Now, here's a bit that has caused me confusion in the past and often surprises me because my expectation is when I tell an element to be absolutely positioned without positioning it, it should be in the top left because isn't that what it starts as? But not always. And also, it should ignore the padding, right? It shouldn't be held with inside the padding, which appears to be the case here. Um, the reason that's just how it works if you don't supply positional values. Once you supply positional values, the padding is ignored and you are positioning it with respect to the border of the element. Ah, and that's the other source of confusion. So what I just said a few minutes ago about it being inside the flex container, and that's why we didn't need position relative. Well, I was wrong. Sorry about that. We do need position relative. What was I thinking? Um, so it is a bit of a weird behavior where position absolute appears to behave oddly when you don't give it some positional values. So here we're much closer. We need to tweak it a little bit. And remember the border is 2 pixels. So, and it looks like maybe if we just shift it 2 pixels to the left and 2 pixels up, that might just do the trick. To shift it up, we use negative top. To shift it to the left, we use negative left. All right, it's getting pretty close. It's still not exactly interesting. Um, what's that little margin doing there? Margin. As you see, the toggle switch label appears to have a small margin around it. It's not true though, it doesn't have a margin. Oh, that's just how the border is rendering. Okay, so there's the border. It's keeping us inside the border still, even though we gave -2 pixels. Interesting, because I don't think that that's how it happened the last time. Oh, I know what it is. Try to think this through. Try to figure out what the issue is, but it's a little tricky. So, but give it some thought on what the issue might be, and I think that it has something to do with uh, um, how how I handled the z-index. So I think what's happening is the circle, pretty sure the circle is actually underneath its parent container. which is another one of those somewhat unintuitive things that will often throw me for a loop. The way it works is so z index minus 1, this means it'll go underneath everything that has z index 0 or greater. And that would also include things that have z index auto, which is the default. The default behaves as if it was z index 0 for most purposes. The default differs in that if an element is using the default z index, like this element is, it does not create a stacking context. And one of the side effects of that, or effects, is basically that, well, it's that its children are in the same stacking context as it. And you can literally stack the children underneath the parent, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense in terms of like visualizing the parent-child relationship, at least not to me, but it could be useful if you want to do something like this, have the border show above this circle. That would be great if that's what we wanted to do, but that's not what we want to do. So we need to establish a stacking context by giving toggle, you can do that by giving ToggleSwitch any z-index value. In this case, we would want a z-index value that's greater than -1. We might as well just use z-index 0 because there will be no other side effects to that. And all right, so that is good enough for now. And pretty good in general. It looks like there might still be some tweaks to maybe the letters need to go a little further out, but I'm not going to worry about that. In the next video, we are going to work on getting it to actually toggle um, left and right and change what it looks like when it's toggled from left and right. And we're also going to set up the state to toggle back and forth. It will be a piece of state called temp unit that will toggle from F to C when we click the toggle switch. And the we're just going to have that state be localized in this toggle switch component. So it won't actually be useful, but it will be useful for us for making sure we have the mechanisms working correctly before we raise that state to the app component and set up a context to filter it out into the components that need it so that we can actually switch the temperature and the unit when this thing gets clicked.